Just made it over to the beach. Just a quick little drive down the street, basically. Get myself a nice towel. I love how Ford has this. Lock that car, lock that truck, and off we go. What a beautiful morning. Man, absolutely love this, that I'm able to just go and one of my favorite spots out here. So beautiful. Got the Gulf of Mexico straight ahead. And these are beautiful little structures to have like a picnic. Pine trees. It's good. That's what it's all about, it's those pine trees. Well, why don't we start the little vlog journey right here. My handy dandy sword. My journal. It's very complicated, you see. A lot of moving pieces. Man, just need to show you guys around. I mean, look behind me. That light is just unbelievable. And then look in front of me, and you've got the Gulf of Mexico. Oh my goodness. Take a quick peek around what we got going on here. How can you not be inspired? How can you not be thankful? How can you not praise the one who created all of this? I don't know what you believe. I don't know who you are. I don't know what you're thinking. Well, let me tell you what I'm thinking. Somebody's created all this. There's no way all of this just came to be just because. I mean, look. Well, we'll get into it, but my background in engineering, you know how hard it is to create something? Do you have any idea how hard it is to create a 3D scanner? I've got a patent on this technology with the team that I worked on. But look, it took us years and millions of dollars to create something that is, relatively speaking to all of this beauty, completely insignificant. And you're telling me this just happened? Right. I believe you. Just happens. Ain't no way. Not convinced. At least my engineering brain, I don't know, is really doubting that this is just able to happen on its own. As I was saying, let me show you around and then get to it. That right there is a beautiful pine tree. Pine trees have those long, well, this one is the long needled pine tree. They don't all have to be long, but. And then you see that stem coming down? See how close it is to the Gulf? So pine trees that live closer to the Gulf, I think they grow faster. I'll have to look that up. But definitely a nice climate to grow something in. Alright, so this morning is gonna start just like this. Any guesses why there's a lion on the front face of my Bible? I've always loved the lion as an animal, and more importantly, the Bible talks about the righteous man is bold as a lion. Oh, there we go. I was reading it right there. If you look at this is, so we're in Proverbs 28 verse 1. The wicked flee when no one pursues, but the righteous are bold as a lion. See if you can get any of that. The righteous are bold as a lion. That's okay. So now, like I said, today is July 1st, my birthday. And I'm taking you on a journey of what my day looks like in the mornings. So I'll just read through Proverbs chapter 1, and whatever really stands out to me, I then think about. See how complicated it is? It's very simple. Proverbs chapter 1. The Proverbs of Solomon, the king of David, king of Israel. To know wisdom and instruction, to understand words of insight, to receive instruction in wise dealings, in righteousness, justice, and equity, to give prudence to the simple, knowledge and discretion to the youth. Let the wise hear and increase in learning, and the one who understands obtain guidance. I mean, everything I just said is right here. Look at this. I didn't make any of that up. I'm telling you. It's as simple as opening the Proverbs 1 and go to verse 5. And it gets even better. Are you ready for that? Look at this. It talks about let the wise hear and increase in learning, and the one who understands obtain guidance. To understand a proverb and a saying, the words of the wise and their riddles. Oh yeah, this is powerful. Look at this. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge. So you want knowledge? To start down that path, see the beginning of knowledge comes from where? The fear of the Lord. Fools despise wisdom and instruction. Yeah. That's pretty cool. Check this out. You see those two people right there? Those are some divers that just walked basically straight from here and out there. And now they're heading straight for the Gulf of Mexico. And I love diving. It's some of the coolest experiences I've ever done in the world. Actually, right where they're diving, straight out into the ocean, that's where I found my biggest megalodon shark tooth. Right out there. I don't think I have it with me, but about that big. Yeah, it's pretty wild. Anyways, back to the Proverbs. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge, and the fools despise wisdom and instruction. Hear, my son, your father's instruction, and forsake not your mother's teaching, for they are a graceful garland for your head and pendants for your neck. My son, if sinners entice you, do not consent. If they say, come with us, and lie in wait for blood, let us ambush the innocent without reason. Such are the ways of everyone who is greedy for unjust gain. It takes away the life of its possessors. Greedy for unjust gain takes away the life of its possessors. I mean, that right there is a riddle. Takes away the life literally means dies. So, I'd rather not die. And so Proverbs says, don't be greedy for unjust gain. How simple is that? Super straightforward. Don't be greedy to make a profit in an unjust way. Because if you do, it takes away the life. You'll die. Like, it's kind of like you go mushroom picking in the Pacific Northwest where I grew up. And when you go mushroom hunting or picking, whatever you want to call it, you get out into the woods and you see all these kind of mushrooms. So many of them are so beautiful. But you need to follow a guide, a manual that tells you you should pick these and you can safely consume and enjoy these kinds of mushrooms. But if you consume those kinds of mushrooms, oh man, you could die. So it's kind of like how I see Proverbs. It says, don't be greedy for unjust gain. It takes away the life of its possessors. Like, it's like the most clear warning sign. Don't be greedy for unjust gain. And if you do, you might die. Like, that's like a mushroom in the Pacific Northwest that wisdom cries aloud in the street, in the market she raises her voice. At the head of the noisy streets she cries aloud. At the entrance of the city gates she speaks. Oh, how long, O simple ones, will you love being simple? How long will scoffers delight in their scoffing, and fools hate knowledge? If you churn at my reproof, behold, I will pour out my spirit to you. I will make my words known to you. I mean, wisdom is speaking here, and this is the voice of God, and wisdom, God says here, if you turn at my reproof, behold, I will pour out my spirit to you. I will make my words known to you. I want wisdom, And therefore, what do we have to do? Let's see. Because I've called and you refuse to listen, I have stretched out my hand and no one has heeded. Because you have ignored all my counsel and would have none of my reproof, I also will laugh at your calamity. I will mock when terror strikes you. When terror strikes you like a storm and your calamity comes like a whirlwind, when distress and anguish come upon you, then they will call upon me, but I will not answer. They will diligently seek me, but I will not find me, because they hated knowledge and did not choose the fear of the Lord. See, would have none of my counsel and despised all of my reproof. And therefore they shall eat the fruit of their way. And they have filled their own devices, for the simple are killed by their turning away, and the complacency of fools destroy them. It says here, but whoever listens to me will dwell secure and will be at ease without dread of disaster. Well, I'm gonna skip into chapter 2 a little bit because I just look at this. I mean, it's absolute gold. It's a gold mine. You just have to know what you're looking for. There's so many keys and answers to look at that. It says here so simply in chapter 2, right? My son, if you receive my words and treasure my commands with you, making your ear attentive to wisdom and inclining your heart to understanding, yes, if you call out for insight and raise your voice for understanding, if you seek it like silver and you search for it as hidden treasures, then what? Then you will understand the fear of the Lord and find the knowledge of God. And look what all these things happen. Then, for wisdom will come into your heart, understanding will guard you, you will be delivered from the forbidden woman, and on and on and on. And then look at these just highlights here, just skipping forward for a little second here, but look. Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and do not lean on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he will make your path, or make straight your paths. And do not be wise in your own eyes. Fear the Lord and turn away from evil. Ah, man, so much goodness right there. Like, let me stop there, because actually, it might seem like, cool, those are great verses, Vadim. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he will make your path straight. What does that even mean? What is trust in the Lord? What does it mean to do that with all of your heart? What does it mean to not lean on your own understanding? In all your ways acknowledge him? What the heck? What do you mean acknowledge? And he will make your path straight. I think the best way I can explain that verse is probably just to share my own life story. Yeah, I think that's the only way to explain what I see in these verses, and why did I spend so many hours reading over the Proverbs here? Because quite literally, they've made my path straight. In personal life, in my professional life. I guess, what if you don't know me? What if you, the audience, is someone who maybe seen some of the posts I've done on YouTube? What if you've seen me at a trade show? You might have met me by, I don't know, a LinkedIn post that you saw. And you're like, I don't know, this guy's a strange name, stands out. Koval. He runs this company called Koval. What's Koval? Why is it a big chunk of his last name Kovalev? What does that even mean? His name is what? Like a what? Vadim. Vadim. A lot of people pronounce it Vadim or Vadim or Vadim. Vadim. It's like, okay, guys, enjoy yourselves. It's pronounced Vadim. It's a Russian name. I'll have to look up what it means. I forget. I'll have to look up what it means. I think it's something like having to do with authority. In the Russian language, it's like a really old traditional name, Vadim. But I do know what my last name means. Have you heard of a blacksmith? Like the one who makes stuff out of metal on a thing called an anvil. Anvil is this like giant spike-looking thing with a big flat surface, and they put hot metal on it and they smash it with like a forging hammer, and they shape something out of metal. So you first have to heat it up, throw it on the anvil, and make horseshoes or weapons or swords out of metal, right? So if you think of the concept blacksmith, in the Ukrainian, Russian, Slavic languages, kavat and the word koval is where that comes from. So it's the same root in the Russian language or the Ukrainian language or the Slavic languages. Koval, it means to blacksmith, to smith, which is really interesting to me. And so when I was getting going and started the company, I don't know how many years ago, a long time ago, I was thinking, man, that's a cool idea there, right? Like to smith, to create. And because I've always was drawn to media and digital and computers and technology, I've always wanted to use that concept of the smithing. And so let that airplane pass by. So, yeah, where was I? Explaining my last name. What is Koval? So to pronounce it, it's a strong K, and the letters after that just spell oval, like the shape, oval, right? So say oval, and add a strong K in the beginning. Say oval, Koval, Koval. Alright, so now you understand what the name means. Koval means to smith. And so like I was saying, when I was just getting the company started, I was trying to invent and be clever with a name. Yeah, I came up with some funny names. But then I just was like, hold on a second. To smith. And I love digital stuff. So why don't I call it Koval Digital? Because I am smithing. We are creating things that did not exist. We're forging the digital realm. We're forging things like a blacksmith would in his shop. We're forging things and creating stuff. So that's where Koval Digital came from. But as the company grew, team grew, services expanded, opportunities started coming, what became obvious is that we cannot be just limited to digital services. I mean, people from all over the world are reaching out and asking for support from the smallest companies that are a one-man band, he needs a website, to the biggest companies on the planet, moving entire supply chains of wood and resource through their supply chains, and making things like furniture. So, well, not just furniture. I mean, look, you see these trusses here in this building? See where I'm standing? Well, I got the floor behind me, this whole deck. And then also look, come on now. See above me? You got this beautiful truss system. So you got these, boards out of wood. And then you've got plywood. Let's look at this construction here for a second and I'll explain what everything means. So, look at this. I mean, I'm just happened to sit here. I did not plan this. So look. You see those beautiful boards and this giant post? How it's like a different shade. See the beautiful texture of the knots and the shapes of the grain, and how, I mean, this is gonna withstand a hurricane. And I say that because I lived here while Hurricane Ian hit, and looks like it's still holding up, unless they may have replaced it. I doubt it. Maybe. Okay, anyways, back to my point. I was explaining Koval. Koval Digital is how the company was originally called, but then we dropped digital and we just went to Koval. And the reason for that, the reason for just going straight to Koval is because face tracking enabled. Okay, there we go. So, why Koval? Because it's rooted deep in my last name, which means to smith, to create, which just made a lot of sense because we're creating things from the digital sphere. We were creating digital things. We were creating, just like I'm doing now, recording a video, capturing content, and then putting that content together in a beautiful way that tells a story about a company, an individual, a group of people, and explains to other people what a company does, etc., etc. So anyways, my passion for storytelling and really computers, technology, media, all of that is kind of where everything got started. Back to my point about Proverbs calls us to look at the straight path. It says here, trust in the Lord with all your heart and do not lean on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him and he will make your path straight. So what does that even mean? Like I was explaining, I can't explain to you with reason and logic what I'm about to explain to you. My story doesn't make any logical sense. How did a kid whose parents and grandparents were persecuted for their faith in Soviet Russia end up as an infant, as a young boy, in the best country on planet Earth, and is given the opportunity to revolutionize a whole industry? That's what we're doing. That's what we're about. Koval is on a mission to improve the lives of the people in the wood industry globally. Listen, it is absolutely insane to think about how I was born in a place where my grandfather went to jail because he believed differently than the government. And the communist regime threw him into some kind of, I don't even know what you call it, some kind of concentration camp, gulags, whatever it is, somewhere deep in Siberia where he had lived for years. I wouldn't even call it living. He was surviving for years because he and his faith did not align with the government. And the government was trying to get rid of these kinds of people. So he had such strong convictions that he persevered. Funny enough, side story, he's missing 3 fingers. I think it's on his right hand. So these 3 fingers on his right hand, and that's because he had an accident somewhere in Siberia at a sawmill. Interesting precursor to my story, right? Have a lot to do with the wood products industry. So with my context of family that was persecuted, the Koval family was persecuted, sent to Siberia to rot in some gulag concentration camps, work camps. But my grandfather and their generation persevered. Insane trials. Can you imagine? My grandmother had to raise, I don't know, at least a handful of children. I think they've got more than 5. It's hard to talk about, especially on camera. I'm going to skip forward some of these stories because feel free to reach out and ask me. I'll share them in person. They are just too serious and too deep for a little YouTube video. Right, so then my parents were persecuted for their faith in the 90s, even, when they fled the Soviet regime, the communist regime. My parents couldn't get a higher education. They were blocked by the government, who were spying on the kids whose parents took them to church on Sunday and didn't let them go beyond, I think, grade 8 education, even though my parents both wanted to get education and they couldn't. So my mom couldn't go and do anything in the medical field that she absolutely loved and wanted to help people. How perverted is that? A person who genuinely seeks the best for others, has strong convictions, and is rooted in the truth, and you just don't let those people get an education to help save lives in the medical system? Like, how perverse of a government you have to be to allow that to be happening to your citizens. And my father, because he couldn't get an education, had to go and do a lot of construction and physical labor, which built him into a man from early days. Anyways, so as soon as, I think it was 91, early 90s, when the communist Soviet regime fell and crumbled, a lot of people wanted to go west. They wanted to get out of this craziness that they were trapped in. And my family is one of those stories that I didn't have any conscious say or choice in where my family ended up. They fled, sold whatever they could, and I can't imagine. I have 3 little kids right now. To be able to just drop everything because you are obviously looking into your future and you don't see anything but darkness. You just see hate. You see criticism. So my parents, being very young, packed everything into 2 suitcases, sold everything, took my little brother and I, and fled. And fled the evil that they experienced and left it all behind. They ended up in the Pacific Northwest. Out of all places in the globe, they landed in the Pacific Northwest, which I'll explain how amazing it is there and how I'm going there this week for a whole month for business, for pleasure. It's absolutely gorgeous. I'll have to continue the vlog episode there. Actually, just follow along. You'll see and hear all about it. But my point is, once my parents moved and relocated, I started kindergarten in the States eventually, and was learning the English language as a kindergartner would. But it was twice as hard for me. I didn't understand English. I was ripped out from the place I lived with the family and friends that we had at the time. Not that I was conscious about it, but you take a kid, the younger the better, I guess, the easier, but still, drop them into a foreign language, a foreign country, and let them try to learn that language while they're speaking a completely different language. How would you feel? And that was me. I was the little kid. I was the little kid in kindergarten who didn't understand English. As I was saying, I was the little kid who didn't understand any English, and my dad was a hero. My dad, and his name is Alexei Kovalev. Remember that name. So my father dropped me off at kindergarten when I didn't understand anything they said, and stood by my side. Stood outside the front door, the door of the school classroom, stood outside the classroom door there while I was sitting in kindergarten, inside the kindergarten class. And he promised me if I didn't give up and learned 2 languages at the same time, while everybody was learning 1, he would buy me a bike. He would